Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. My name is Delaney Hall. I'm a morning anchor at ABC 8 News here in Richmond. I am so honored to be with you guys in this room today and joined by these four wonderful experts. You each have a very different journey to success. And today we're gonna hear about your journey, how you got there, what made you so successful, and what you think the next generation can do to propel themselves to success. So, is everyone ready? Cool. So first I just want to start out by hearing from each of you. Just introduce yourself and just a little bit of your background, whatever you're comfortable sharing. Go ahead, Lori.
I get to start because I'm holding the mic.
Yeah.
So hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out on this kind of Richmond January-ish day. I'm Lori Waran. I'm with Richmond Raceway, and I just started actually 6 months ago. So I don't know that I get to say that I'm successful yet because we've only had one race with me at the helm. But on April 2nd, we get to have another one, and I get to say that it's sort of a race that I fully got to be a part of with a wonderful team. But my pathway to this part was actually an interesting pathway. I've been in Richmond. I grew up in Richmond. I'm from Richmond in the Hanover area. I've been in media, actually. I started, ironically, at Auto Trader magazine. Right? Cue the drum. So I started at Auto Trader magazine, and then I moved to Style Weekly, where I was there for 15 years as the publisher. And for those of you who don't know what a publisher is, a publisher actually oversees the entire business. I did not write. Thankfully for you all, I didn't have to write any stories. I'm a terrible writer, but I did get to oversee the business, and then I moved to Virginia Business Magazine. So I was a media executive. That's a strange pathway, I know, but I landed at Richmond Raceway, and I'm very excited to be there. So that's a quick Cliff Notes version, and I'll tell you more as we go on.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. Yeah. Did someone win the race?
Someone did.
Then it was successful.
Yeah. They made it across the finish.
That's all that matters. Well, hi, I'm Janet Kelly. I'm currently a senior advisor to the governor for children in the office of Governor Youngkin. And I came to this role and through to success, which I'll use in quotes because, as we all know, it's an up and down journey through, not surprisingly, the political sphere. I started out running campaigns when I was in high school. Campaigns are like mini startups. They have unbelievably large budgets for the length of time that they last, and ended up winning the 2005 Attorney General's race. So I think I set the record for the youngest female to win a campaign in Virginia. I say that as a cautionary tale. It means I peaked early. And I am still learning. Served as Secretary of the Commonwealth in 2010 to 2014, and then went off to some consulting. So I've run 2 of my own consulting firms and also ran a nonprofit, which is also like a business. We just have a different IRS designation. And so we'll talk more later, but that's my path. And like I said, still learning and growing. And I have a notebook up here because I'm planning on learning from you all.
But, you know, can't hold too many things at once, but thank you. Hi, everybody. This is just a beautiful crowd. I'm super nervous. This is my first time, so show me grace. My name is Angela Roisten, and I work for this organization you might know of called Virginia Credit Union. I've been there since 2008. I have about 25 plus years experience in the financial industry. I lead a dynamic team of financial professionals, and I absolutely love it. I'm not from Virginia. I'm a military brat, so I've grown up everywhere that I lived. But I claim Hawaii because that's where I lived the longest, and that's where I met my husband of 25 years, which I still have a crush on him. But together, we have 2 beautiful daughters, 27 and 22, and we also are foster parents of 2 adult sons with special needs. So, and I also have 2 fur babies, and I'm excited to hear about all these wonderful leaders, and I'm hoping that I can add a little value as well.
All right. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Till. I am the president of the Richmond Times-Dispatch and also the president of all of our markets in Virginia. We have 13 markets across Virginia with Lee Enterprises, Virginia. I grew up in Hampton, Virginia. I'm from Virginia, but lived in, crabber? Are you a crabber? Okay, can't crush the crabs, I'm just saying. But I moved to Richmond 2 years ago, started as the president 7 months ago, and I've seen a lot of change. I've been in the media business for 27 years. Actually, Lori and I used to work together with Landmark Communications, so we go way back. But I love what we do, and I grew up in the Hampton Roads area, and I just love Richmond. I didn't know how much I would love it, but my husband and I love it. We have 5 kids blended. 5, we're the Till bunch, I like to say. But no, I'm excited to be here and looking forward to learning from all of you too.
Wonderful.
Down here.
So my first question is going to be, I guess your childhood, if you could say. Growing up, would you say you were a motivated person? I know I heard something about campaigns when in high school.
Go
ahead. Yeah,
with that.
whoever wants to answer.
Yes, I was very motivated. I grew up with a single mother, and so I was lucky enough to have a very strong mother who's my hero still today. A lot of strong females in my life. I have a really strong grandmother who's still alive, and my aunts, and yeah, so I was very motivated, and I had a great role model and other role models to learn from, and still do today, because I think it's important that we all have mentors and models that we can learn from and lean on when needed. So, yeah.
I think we're going to have a lot of mommy stories. Yeah, I was totally motivated growing up in some things. I had a great mom. My mom is that person that's like, oh, it's awesome. You're going to be great. So that was a little bit contagious. So I was always motivated. She put me in all these extracurricular activities, and she made it feel like it was such a fun thing. And I really value that because it helped me create long-lasting memories and basic fundamentals to actually kind of live in this society. Now, I wasn't motivated like getting up in the morning, but I mean, I had a strict dad. I mean, he was a colonel in the military, and I love him to death. I'm probably going to hear about this later. I love him to death, but he was strict. So I was very motivated, like, not to be on his bad side. So I'll go with that. Yeah.
Whatever gets you through, right?
Also, if you're a veteran family, Virginia is your home. Like, let's just settle that
In my home.
once and for all.
Right. That's
All right, I just had to slip that in there. So I grew up in rural North Carolina, and so for how many of you grew up in a rural environment, rural community? You know, it just instills you with so many wonderful values that you can also learn anywhere, but I always had someone watching me, which kind of kept me out of trouble. All the moms talked. I also have a very strong mom role model who worked 3 jobs to make sure that we had all that we needed and some of what we wanted. And very, 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 we were a family of strong female leads. Strong aunts, we call them aunts in North Carolina, not aunts. Strong grandmothers, all of the things. And I think, I'll tell you one story because I think that a short one. I remember I have 2, an older brother and a younger brother. And my grandfather was painting our house. He was on scaffolding. And I was about 8, really into gymnastics. And he's standing at the top, like 2nd floor of our house. And he's like, hey, Jan, get me some tea. And my brother's like, I'll do it. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. I'm not an idiot. Like, if you want to take him the tea, take him the tea. And he couldn't do it. And so I, with one arm, climbed that scaffolding and got my grandfather the tea. And so looking back, I was 7 years old. And I mean, from that point on, it was game off. I was just like, I know that I can do anything I really put my mind to because I have this really supportive community of people who are cheering me on. And I really felt that my whole life. So.
That's the good stuff. I like that. My parents were both high school principals. Yeah, live in that for a little bit. So whether I wanted to be motivated or not, I was. My father, before he was a high school principal, was football. There's one of his students right there, actually, was a high school football coach. So I was ensured I was going to be motivated from them. So, but they were great. My mother was one of the first high school principals in Henrico County. So, yeah, I was highly motivated as a kid. I'll leave it there.
No, thank you for those stories. I want you to think about your first job. First job where you got a paycheck. When you got that first job, was the priority the paycheck? Was it the experience? Was it to get your foot in the door? Was it something else? What was the motivation behind getting that, I guess, first job related to your industry now, if you could say that?
My first job was actually bagging groceries at U-Crops. And speaking of my parents were, motivating me to get a paycheck. So that was my motivation from them. My dad was of the mindset, you rub some dirt on it. You get out there, if you are, if your boyfriend breaks up with you, you rub some dirt on it. If you get a bad grade, you rub some dirt on it. If you actually fall down, you rub some dirt on it. So I just, it was during the summer that I had the job, and it was hot as heck, and so I wasn't going to complain about how the heat or anything. Bagging groceries, that's when you took the groceries out with U-Crops, right? So yeah, it was hot, and I was just not going to complain. You just rub some dirt on it. So that was, that was the discipline that I had, and I enjoyed it. It was good for me to have some dirt rubbed on it. So
that is such a great answer. I forgot the question, so you're gonna have to remind me.
Your first job was the priority, the paycheck or experience or what? Yeah.
At U-Crops, that's the most Richmond job you could possibly have as your first. So my first job was waiting tables. Like, how many people waited tables for their very first job? It's a good first job in a lot of ways. It's a terrible job in a lot of ways. But my parents did not pay for a lot of wants. You caught me earlier. I said she paid for everything we need and some of what we wanted. A lot of what we wanted was not covered by my parents. They said, if you want the nice pair of tennis shoes, it's on you. So I started working when I was 14. Really started working before that, but got my first paycheck at 14. I do the same with my own kids. I have my 10-year-old daughter here. This is Tobin. I like to say my kids are my best work. I also have a 12-year-old and a 19-year-old who's a freshman at JMU. I missed that in my bio, but she's here. And we do the same, don't I? She should answer this question because she does lemonade stands. They do chores to earn money. They do, she wants a $60 pair of new Converse. And I'm like, it's on you, babe. And she's 10. She's not even 10. She's 9. So I love the notion of that first job teaching you those lessons. So.
Well, like Lori, my first job was bagging groceries, but it was in the commissary. So if you're not in the military, commissary is like a grocery store. And I totally did it for money. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I wanted that money, especially when I was going to college, because, I wanted to let my parents know that I could help them with something, whether it was like books or, or food. I wanted to show that I can help them. But as I got into my career, I obviously looked for opportunities that have internal growth, right? That, had a great salary, because I was a new mom during that time. And so that was a priority for me to make sure that I, build a foundation where my family can be together. But yeah, I learned a lot about bagging. People not tipping, people tipping. It's hard work, but when you want money and you need money at a young age because you like nice shoes, you will put in the work. And so I have great parents that taught me a lot of work ethic. And I actually kind of loved every job that I worked at. But I mean, I could do without the bagging part, but it was a great start for me.
I did not like every job I've done. I can say that. But there's a theme here, because my first job was at Farm Fresh. Grocery store, yeah. And I did it for the money, gas money. We grew up with nothing, and I had to work for that. And as I grew as a person, especially in college, I started to do things where I could learn, or I could learn from whoever I was working with. So I did a lot of, back then when we would do internships, you didn't get paid, and you had to pay for the class. I think that's still happening. We need to change that. And that was always to learn, and to grow and to get that next opportunity. And then, literally I could give you 5 examples of where I took a lesser paying job for the experience, but it always worked out. I always ended up making more, or it took me down a path to a better opportunity. So I would say early on, it was for the money. later on, it was for the experience and what I could learn from. Yeah.
Very
Just
nice.
hand that to me, huh? Okay. All right.
Have any of you ever been told you're inferior at work or can't perform as well because you are a woman? If so, how did you handle that?
Ew, touchy. Okay, well, I've never been told that outright, but there has been some indirect situations where it felt that way. But you know what? The best recipe for motivating me is to tell me I'm incapable of doing something. So I just kind of use that as an opportunity to prove you wrong. So.
Oh, this is one of my favorite stories from my girls. I was 23 and working on a campaign, and I had worked on enough of them that I knew better when I heard this. But I was working on a Senate race. There was a congressional race. The congressional race needed a fundraiser, and I was on the political side. And it is generally true that girls fundraise and boys do politics. That was generally true, at least back then. And I was the only girl field staffer, the whole bit. And so he comes, kind of comes in my office and says, "Hey, we really need a fundraiser for this congressional race." And I was like, "Well, I don't enjoy fundraising. I don't really find it to be challenging to me. I really enjoy the political side. I really want to do the politics. I love it, all that." And he goes, "Well, let me just tell you how this works. Boys do politics and girls do fundraising." I said, "Okay." I'm going to do politics. And I did. And I just ignored him, and he saw me every day. And, he ended up working for me later. So.
Wow. I'm sure there's been a million times. I can't recall specifics and anecdotal, but the short answer is yes. But I don't believe it's been gender specific, which I think is probably where the question is sort of leading. I think it's been sort of across the board. But you just answer that, in my opinion, with your actions, right? You just show up and do it, and then you prove it, and that's it. So I wish that there was something anecdotal I can share, because that was a really good story. But you just show up by your actions and prove it.
That was a mic drop answer, I think. That was a good one.
Yeah, I don't think I can top your answer, but I agree with Lori. I mean, it happened a lot with female managers, coworkers, and male. But you just learn from that and you move on and with action. And I've had many of them work for me later too. And I just, it happened more when I was in my 20s than it really does now. In the beginning of my career, it happened a lot. Not so much now. Not so much now.
Have you ever seen a coworker or colleague get publicly ridiculed while on the job? If so, how did that impact the workplace culture, and did it impact you in any way?
I'll start with that one. When I worked at the Virginian Pilot in the 1990s, late 1990s, it was a good old boys club. No offense to the men in the room, but it was. Media was a lot of, most salespeople were men. Women were the secretaries or the assistants. It's weird now. It's flipped. Now the majority of salespeople in media, or at least in my industry, are female. We're trying to get more men. But they would throw footballs on the floor, and there was one guy that was just an ugly person, and he used to yell at everyone and berate them, and just nasty. I like to call them energy vampires. He was an energy vampire. He would suck the life out of the room. But I was a new employee, and I saw this happening, and I remember thinking, one, I don't want that to happen to me, but two, I know what I'm not going to do when I get in a position where I'm managing people. And years later, this individual ended up working for me, and I liberated him quickly because, I believe in you need to hire nice people who work hard, and I don't care how successful that person might be, and I've always, every position I've ever had, and still today, if they're an ugly person that is not going to help your culture, you need, and I like to call that cancer, I cut the cancer out. So I did liberate him, because it was liberating for me at the time to terminate, but at the same time, I think it was liberating for him, because he ended up going and doing other things and was very happy. So a lot of times they're just not in the right role, and that was the case with this individual. But yeah, he was just, and for whatever reason, he was there for like 10 years, and that behavior was allowed, and I'm not really sure why, but not after he started reporting to me. Yeah. He was liberated. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that does happen a lot in the workplace, and more than you'd like to. But, I learned this thing a long time ago. I don't remember where I learned it from, but it's called the 3 PLEs. Do y'all know what PLE stands for? Perfectly logical explanation. I'm going to need some crowd participation, because I'm going to give you a story. Okay, so, I never really try to understand why people are pulling the cancer and the air out of you. I never really understand how they do that, but I always try to give people 3 PLEs before I address it, right? So, that person might be going through something personal in their life, right? And unfortunately, they brought it to work. That could be the first PLE. But if it happens again, I'm like, I'm sure there's a perfectly logical explanation as to why we're here, right? And so now I'm thinking, maybe I need to pay attention, because maybe it's me. What am I doing to encourage this unwelcome behavior? So that's the second PLE. But if we get to the third PLE, I give myself permission to address it respectfully, address it, right? I'll give you an example. I had this executive a long time ago. I'm not going to name the company. And a wonderful person, and everywhere we went, she would introduce me. She'd say, hey, this is Angela, and she does those little events. Ooh, PLE. So we would go to these various events, and that's how she introduced me. Oh, yeah, this is Angela Roisten, and she does those little events. So I got to the third PLE, and I said, hey, how can I convince you that that little event is not so little to me at all? And you know what? She didn't even realize that her words came across as condescending, and she totally apologized. I say all that to say is, like, as leaders, we really need to be mindful of our delivery, because what may be important to them, it may not be important to us, but it may be extremely important to them. And as leaders, it's our job to kind of listen and hear what they have to say, even when the value doesn't make sense to you at first. So that's kind of my spin on it. Oh, steal it. I'm going to steal the liberated.
That's really good. I'm glad I brought my notebook. When you're in politics, you see a lot of that kind of behavior, and I would love to say that I handled it the right way every single time and did made the person feel better and stuck up for them. I didn't. I didn't. And so there's looking at what you can control now. And just recently we were doing an event at work, and it was a very short term. Like, we pulled off a 200-person event in 3 days, and all hands were on deck, so I was helping with it. And afterwards we went out for drinks to kind of debrief. And I just said, hey guys, I've realized something about myself. I can either be kind, I can be excellent, or I can be fast. Pick 2. That's it. You get to pick 2. And then they laughed, and it is funny, but it's still not okay, and I wasn't, especially for how I was in my 20s, and Kristen's worked with me in my 20s, so she knows how much I've grown since then. But that's all I can control now, and just finding there's never an excuse not to be kind if I'm honest, and so yeah, I'm still learning and growing in that. I don't think I berate people, but yeah, you've worked with me. I don't berate people, but still learning and growing in that, and figuring out better ways to handle it when it happens in the moment.
I like what you said, because we're still learning and growing. And one of the things that Barry asked us to do is to try to share little nuggets with you guys throughout this conversation. And I'm hopeful that I can share little nuggets, but I think what's maybe even more important is that we share truth with you. And as leaders, we fail a lot, probably more often than we do well. And early on in my career, one of the things that didn't share was, as publisher, I took over as publisher at Style Weekly when I was 31 years old, and at that time it was the youngest publisher in the United States of an alternative weekly. When you're young, you make a lot of mistakes, right? A lot. And as such, I failed tons. And I know I failed, especially in this job, in this department. I let a number of really unfortunate events happen over and over again, and one of those was in this area, letting toxic employees sort of be a cancer, and continue on. And I did name the company. So, but it was my fault. Yeah, it was my fault. And I could have done better in this department, and I've definitely learned from it. And so that's one of the areas that I know I can improve upon, and I've definitely fixed and corrected that. And I know that it certainly helps. You know, culture is the only thing you have really to make progress. And if you don't fix culture right away, it can eat away at a company. And I know that right now I feel like we got a great culture. Do we have a great culture? Okay. I feel like we do great at Richmond Raceway, but you know, it's something that I didn't do well early on, and so you know, it's a little nugget right now, I guess, is that I failed pretty badly early on, and so that's the truth serum and the nugget that I'm sharing right now.
Thank you for that truth. I know that's not easy. Can you recall a time when you felt defeated at work? How did you overcome that?
Yesterday, the day before that. I mean, more truth serum. I'm like the negative Nancy right now. I'm not trying to be, but I mean, it's like every moment, you know, but you pick yourself up, you rub some dirt on it, you know, you get back up. I mean, that's the great stuff. That's the good stuff, is that how you overcome, you know, those moments, right? So that's it.
Yes, ditto. I felt defeated today. I felt defeated yesterday, the day before. Right now, I'm working on a project related to behavioral health, mental health, substance use disorder. It's really heavy stuff. I'm not built for it. I'm not really professionally equipped to do the work at all. It's super intimidating, and I'm not easily intimidated, but it is. And so I've come to two truth serums, if you will. One is I'm 46. So at this point in my life, if I'm not doing things that scare the boots off me, what is the point, right? Like, I clearly have a set of gifts. All of these women do. We all have a superpower. Each of you does as well. And you have it for a reason. And so use it. And who cares if you're defeated? That's not an excuse not to keep going. I think the second truth nugget, at least for me, is my faith is something that I absolutely could not live without. There is zero chance that I could see the trauma I see the systemic brokenness that I see on a daily basis, and get up and not feel defeated if I didn't have my faith. So that is where I draw my hope from, with a capital H. And if I didn't have that, there's no way. I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. So.
Don't start doing church, because let me tell you, I'm telling you, faith is the core of what drives me, and I can't help but to think that the values that I have, you know, is from God. And so, hey, I get the most clarity when I go to God in prayer, but I'm not going to have church. But yes, like these women, you know, I'm defeated all the time. But, you know, one of the things that's extremely defeating for me is, like, letting people go. Like, you never want to, like, let people go. That just.
But now you're liberating them.
But now I'm going to change it to liberating. You never want to, like, let people go. And I always feel defeated about that, you know, even though if I devote, like, many resources and hours just to try to turn, you know, that employee around, you know, it happens sometimes, and it doesn't feel good. But I have to tell myself, you know, Jesus can leave the 99 sheep to chase the one. But as leaders, we can't always do that, you know. And as much as we want to chase that quiet quitter, we got to realize that we have that friendly fire employee. That's that employee that's disengaged, bringing down morale, never wants to be here, and everyone's like, it's time for you to go. Like, you're taking the air out of me. And so at that point, and those were two different people, two different types of employees. But at that point, I no longer carry that defeat, because that person didn't want to be here anyways. But that's always been something that I feel defeated on. But
I mean, every day, this morning. I mean, we went from 3 pages of funnies to 1. And you want to talk about like upset subscribers, right? And newspapers is only one part of what we do. I mean, 54% of our revenue now comes from digital. A lot of people don't know that. Also, our structure is, as Lori mentioned, as publisher, that role as president and publisher continues to evolve. So my job as president is I run the company, the brand, the profit, but I'm not responsible for content. That flows up through a corporate content group at Lee Enterprises that figures out what the strategy is for content across all 77 markets. So imagine getting 1,000 calls from people who are upset. I got one this morning, and I want to help because I'm a fixer. But there's only so much I can do because it's a corporate decision. So, and we have made some adjustments to that, but that can be defeating because you feel like, you really want to help, but you can't in all cases. So what I do is I just put my head down. I explain, I try to help, I get their information to the right people, and then I put my head down, do the work, stay positive, and good things come from that. But it can be exhausting. So I know you've seen them next door. All your neighbors are complaining. Tell them they can call me. Don't. We probably won't go back to 3 pages of funnies, but no, it's every day, every day.
That is a good story. During a job interview, what skills do you find are mandatory?
I guess I will go since I
ahead,
am
yeah.
holding the mic. I mean, in my line of work, we're in sales, so I obviously look for people that have good relationship building skills, interpersonal skills, individuals that can step outside the box, and people that can really learn how to prioritize. So those are, there's so many more, but those are my top, what did I say, top 4 or 5.
Do you want to go next?
This will be short for me. I have hired hundreds of people in my life. I ran the governor's transition in 2009. I ran an AG's transition, so at a very young age, had to learn very early on. And I probably have a framework for this somewhere, but the general gist of it is that soft skills right now are worth 1,000,000 times more to me than hard skills. And it's not that one is more important than the other. You need both, but I find that it is easier to teach those hard skills than the soft skills. So if you walk in with soft skills, if you have high emotional intelligence, if you have high empathy, if you're a collaborator, if you already are a natural coordinator, you're hired. I can teach you to do anything. By the way, I don't have any jobs opening right now. I wish I did. But those, and I would love to know who disagrees with me up there, because I bet all of us are kind of in that same boat of hard skills. I can teach you math, I can teach you Excel, I can teach you anything you need to know, or someone can. I'm not going to teach you math. But those soft skills are so key.
2 things: are you coachable, and do I think you want to learn? It's really easy. Can I tell if you're coachable? Because coachable is everything. And do you seem like you want to learn, even if you are 89 years old? Because there's not a day that goes by that I don't know that I want to learn something. If you think you don't have nothing left to learn, then kind of game over.
Ditto. That's okay. We can keep it rolling. How do you evaluate team members and hold them accountable?
Hold them accountable? A big thing is if they will hold themselves accountable. I think that's it. I know I hold myself accountable, but evaluate team members. It's kind of ongoing every day. We do a review process at the end of the year, but ongoing feedback every day. I think that's pretty much it. That if they are, in my opinion, I haven't shared this with our team, but the theme this year is going to be hungry and humble. You got to stay hungry, but you got to be humble. That's it, hungry and humble, hungry and humble. If we're going to say that over and over again, we're going to stay on track, I think. So if they can hold themselves accountable, and if they're all hungry and humble the whole time, I think we're going to be good. That's it.
And I'm going to say ditto to that. Well said. I have nothing to add.
I guess when you hold people accountable, they have to see and believe that you can hold yourself accountable, right? So I got to set the expectation. And then I think it's important to sort of put in responsibility and ownership in my team's DNA to drive successful outcomes. Because if you don't give them a sense of responsibility and ownership, they're not gonna own it, right? But I also need to be clear on expectations when it comes to accountability, right? Because it's not fair to hold somebody accountable. They don't even know what's being asked of them, right? So I think if we have clear expectations, it's so much easier to evaluate employees' performances, whether good or bad. That makes any sense?
What I was going to say.
Yeah. Ditto.
I love that. Ditto.
So good.
Have any of you all had mentors over the years? And how important were they to your journey? I see a lot of hands, so go
I
ahead.
know. I'm glad I have the mic on this because I had first. I'm going to go first. I had the best second dibs. I had the best mentors on the planet, and I got to work for 3 men. They happened to be men. I didn't have a whole lot of female role models coming up through my 20s, but I had 3 men who I was treated simultaneously like their daughters or sisters and never for 1 second believed or perceived in any way, shape, or form that I was different than or less than or whatever than any other member of my team that was not a female. So I had so lucky, and I would, if you don't have a mentor, I would highly encourage you to get one. We have a legend in the Richmond business community here, Debbie Johnson. We have another legend in the Richmond business community. We have a lot of legends. I'm just sure I don't know all of you, but the 2 that I know, Dave Barrett and Debbie, that are in the room are just phenomenal. I know they mentor people as well. And I still have coffee with mine every day. So Governor McDonnell was one. I'm going to name them because I'm going to tell them to watch. Governor McDonnell, Justice Bill Mims, who just retired off Supreme Court, and then Phil Cox, who lives in Northern Virginia. None of you know, but I'm so lucky.
I didn't know Debbie was here. I just realized. I just saw. She was one of our executive women in business for Style Weekly a long time ago. I remember that. So, hi. Thank you. So the reason I wanted to grab the mic so hard really quickly is because Kelly was one of mine. So yeah, I know. Hard. Right. So it's kind of cool to be on a panel with her now. I'm kind of fangirling. No, but Kelly has mentored people for such a long time. She was an official mentor of mine, but then also I think she's been like unofficially so many people's. Is that correct grammar? I don't know. This is why I was never an editor. I was only a publisher and didn't write. But Kelly's been a great mentor to people down in the Hampton Roads community. And so she's not going to tell you this. That's why I needed to grab the mic immediately and brag on her. But so Kelly has been one, but I've had a lot of male mentors as well. And so I didn't want this to be like because it's a women's panel, like, come up and say it's all about women and female empowerment, and I want to make sure that we shout out to the important and impactful men in our lives as well. So yeah.
Okay. Look at that. Will you be my mentor? The question was, have you had a mentor and did they know?
Yeah.
Is that okay? So I always have a mentor. I've had mentors over the years, and they always knew that they were my mentor because I created these mentor agreements. I have a story behind this. Don't think I'm extra. Because I got a real failure story that I got to share. But, a part of that mentor agreement is, how often can they meet with me? Letting them know some of the areas of development that I need to work on, and being able to kind of follow up with them in terms of my progress. So I take that real seriously, and I'll tell you why. When I was a young leader in the organization growing up, I was like, I'm gonna get me a coach because I want to move up fast in the organization. So I got me a coach, had saved my money, got the coach on the side, and I was meeting with this coach, and there were times where work got in the way, and I had to cancel some of those coaching sessions. And I think that coach, I was at her 3rd PLE because this is what she said to me. Don't miss this. She said, okay, I just now know that I know where I stand and I know where your development stands on your priority list. Oh, I still get this gut guilt lack of self-awareness feeling just talking about that. And so from that day forward, I make it a point to, when I ask somebody to be my mentor, I take that seriously. And I need them to know that I'm going to take it seriously. And that's why I do that mentor agreement, because these people are taking time out of their day to talk to you. And shame on me for not showing up. So I'll never do that again. And if someone asks me to be their mentor, I also take that seriously, because I want to know how serious you are. So I'm going to send you these questionnaires. How often do you want to meet? What do you want to focus on? Are you good with tough love? Because Angela's going to give you tough love, right? I feel they're asking me to be responsible for their developmental growth, and I need to be 100% invested in that. And if I can go back the hands of time, I wouldn't have skipped a single meeting, because I'm just not on your priority list, and neither is your development. Ouch. So show up.
I'm a huge, as Lori said, and thank you, Lori. I'm a huge believer in mentoring and being mentored. And if your mentor doesn't know they're your mentor, then that's not a mentorship. That's more of someone you admire or look up to or what have you. Because it needs to be, as Angela said, a two-way street. And I have been fortunate, as many of us have mentioned, to have some incredible male mentors, especially when I was in my 20s and 30s, and still do today, and also females, because I think it's good also with your mentors. I have some professional mentors, because you have professional growth as a human, as a person, and then, as a mother. And then I also have so personal mentors and then professional mentors. And because I had such good mentors along the way, I tried to give back. And so I still mentor today. But I am choosy, because we only have so much time, and so it's really important that you pick people that you connect with and that you feel like you can help. And if I've even had some people where I ended up referring them to another person who I thought would be a better mentor for them based on what they were trying to get out of the mentorship. So no, I'm a huge believer in mentoring. And so if some of you don't have mentors, please get some. And if you have been mentored, give back and find some younger professionals or just younger humans that you can help along their journey.
May I add something?
Sure.
You mentioned the difference between personal and professional mentors, and I really like that. And in campaigns, and Barry will know this. Thank you, Barry, by the way, for inviting us here today. This has been such great content. Yes. In politics, when you're running for office, you create something called a kitchen cabinet. Is anybody familiar with a kitchen cabinet? And it's really like your own personal board of directors that will pour into you, you can bounce ideas off of. It's ideal if you meet together, but my kitchen cabinet is all working moms who we're lucky if we get to see each other once a month, much less all together for me once a month. Like, that's not realistic in this phase of life. But I love the idea of a kitchen cabinet, and it takes the pressure off. But when you say mentor, some people are like, ooh, that's a lot of time commitment. But if you're like, would you join my kitchen cabinet? It sounds like, or will you join my, it's like, oh, that sounds fancy. So for what that's worth.
I like that a lot. Where have you gotten the best training to help develop your skills, and why does it stand out among the rest? You need to think about it.
I know.
It's okay. Someone else can take the mic for a second. Yeah. What do you think about that? Yeah.
I have been so blessed to have so many influencers that have crossed my path that have helped me with my skills. A lot of you are in the room, so thank you. But I can go a long list of things, anywhere from Leadership Metro Richmond to Executive Women International. Love Executive Women International. They're all about careers, connections, and community. Check them out. They're amazing. But also my children. Right? But I think alone, the best skill that I learned, and Lori mentioned this a lot of times, is failing. I wrote the book on failures, burnt it and buried it under my success, but I'm completely open to a new book of failures, because I think from a failure standpoint, you never want to get back in that space. So that stands out to me, because you want to make sure to avoid those things and grow from it. So that's my, thank you. Anybody else?
I will say the best way that I personally have learned is just from doing. I mean, I don't know how politics is so proud of campaigns, or that's how I was formed. That's my professional formation in my 20s. I haven't run a campaign in 15 years. I'm not partisan. So if you're like, I'm not going to listen to anything she says because she's all political, I'm not partisan anymore. I work on children's mental health, and I think everyone agrees that that's important. So, but I will say doing the work is important. And I think for professional growth, there are so many tools that you all have probably taken, Myers-Briggs and DISC and all of those things. Like, we kind of roll our eyes at them because you're forced to do them at a staff retreat and open up to your colleagues about things that you really don't want to talk about with them, and it may not be the best experience for you. However, I will say there is a tool that has been, and I can't leave today without mentioning it, that has been so helpful to me, and it's a weird name. It's called the Enneagram, Enneagram. I love it. I'm not going to tell you what my number is, although you could probably guess. But it is, it's different in that it's different from what I think all the other tools are, because it gives you a path to growth, whereas the other tools are more observational and reflective. This is like, here's how you know when you're growing as your number. It all ties to core childhood wound, which we all have, whether we want to admit it or not. And so how many people are familiar, I'll just real quick, familiar with Enneagram, love it? Okay, so it's not, I love it, please do it.
No, I would echo just getting out there and doing it, and then also listening, doing, making a decision. I think a lot of people kind of get stuck in listening, trying, but then not making a decision. Once I make a decision, I kind of learn from it. So I think that's where I've learned, because I either learned I've done something wrong or I've learned I've done something right. So I think just getting out there and doing it, that's probably the best place.
I would just echo everything, what everyone said. To listen, to do, try, fail forward. Be quick to pivot when it's not working. I've done this myself. I try not to now, but I see it often where you've got your plan, you're sticking to your plan. And even though the plan's not working, you're just going to continue to do it. And so being nimble to try different things. And I really also try to get all of the people that work with me to have A/B testing. So constantly look at ways to try different things at multiple times, because it doesn't matter what you put on paper, it's probably not going to be 100%, right? And then when you learn what's working, then do more of that and do less of what's not working. And don't beat yourself up, especially women. Women tend to beat themselves up, and we shouldn't do that. You know, you need to have self-talk. So that's another thing. Mentors, great. People that you work, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with, but you also have to be good to yourself. And so I am constantly self-talking to myself, and I do that to my kids too. And it's amazing, and it does work. And then having people that work around you that will tell you when you screw up, because none of us are like the woman that you said did 3 PLEs, and then you're like, that really offended me, and then she didn't even realize, because a lot of times the difference, we're all different. And so making sure that we're communicating, and when something does offend you, that you have the courage to have that conversation, because you learn through that, and the person typically, it's intent versus impact. Normally the intention is not coming from a bad place, but the impact was bad. So that's how I've developed and learned over the years, and continue to this day.
Some great advice there. We have time for probably one more question. So, have you ever felt like you had to work harder for the same goal compared to your male coworkers?
Not now. Not now. Not now. But yes, in the beginning. Yes, and it was frustrating. But I will say, not now with the company that I'm with. But even in this role, and I'm not going to name names, or, I'm the first female president in 172 years. Girl power, yay. But I don't want you to say yay yet, because I've only been in the role 7 months. I want, we broke the ceiling. It took too damn long, excuse my French. But I want my legacy to be the good action that comes from me being the leader of the Richmond Times-Dispatch and the Daily Progress and all of our streaming video groups and our digital division, et cetera, not because I'm a female, because I earned this role because of what I've done over the last 27 years, not because I'm a female. So that's the first thing. Sorry to get on my soapbox, but I think so many of us say, well, first female, and that's great, but it's more than that. It's the positive impact that we make in the role that we're in, whatever that is, because there's leadership at every level. And I love having a young one here today, our next generation, because you don't have to be the leader of 1,000 people to make a positive difference. You can make a positive difference everyone can make a positive difference. So I don't even remember what the question was.
You answered it perfectly.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go.
No one's going next. Like,
that was it.
Drop the mic.
Drop the mic. No.
That was good.
No.
Like, seriously, ditto. I have nothing to add to that. I agree.
Same.
That's okay.
Well
We
said.
can wrap it up with, I guess, what piece of advice would you give to the next generation, to the little ones in the room? That was a loaded question, I know.
I know I have two boys. I have a 16-year-old son, and I have a 22-year-old son who's a senior at Virginia Tech. And have a lot. Yeah, you're hokey? Okay. And my only advice to them is to slow the heck down. And that's coming from the president of a racetrack, right? But to the other generation, to the rest of the generation that's coming up, you know, I did have some, I do get some pushback from being in my role from the other gender, even now. But it's understandable because I'm in a male-dominated world and I didn't come from a background in sports. But you know, my response is I don't have a background in sports, but I have a background in success. And so just keep having a background in success, right? And that could be your response. Just keep pushing, right? And you are being successful, I already heard, so. Very successful. She's a little dynamo, so.
Thank you. My daughter's here, so I will tell you what I tell her, and that is something along the lines, and it has a different iteration, but love God, love yourself, love others. And, whether you believe in a higher power or not, pick one. I'll circle back to something that Angela said at the very beginning, which was that I don't know how many people caught that she said she was a foster parent. Like that, I'm a foster to adopt mom. And, we can sit up here all day and talk about best practices and strategies for success. And I mean, listen, all four of us are from male-dominated professions. All four of us have. But at the end of the day, I mean, it really is kind of true what they say, that on your deathbed, you don't wish you had spent more time at the office. What matters is those relationships that you build, the impact that you've had to those kids, Angela, is priceless. So thank you for your service.
Thank you for yours. I mean, I'm learning from them. Trust me, I've learned so much from them, and I love them dearly. So it's just a huge value in my life. Don't get me emotional. I'll get that choky thing in my throat. But I'm trying to think of this quote. Like this leader said, leadership is the art of building a platform for people to share ideas that work. So my message to you is share them. Don't be in a position where you have to wonder whether your ideas could have gone somewhere. Don't be that quiet employee. Like, share them. And even if you get the let down at first, circle back. You never know. It could be timing, but share them.
I would say lean in, give back, have a voice. If you see something that you don't agree with, say it, say something. Or if you see something that you do agree with, emulate it and, evangelize it. And then also just try to make a positive impact. Because when you do that and you think about others and making a positive impact every day, and it could just be, I always like to say, incremental improvement. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight. But if we can every day see incremental improvement, that's a good day. And if we all did that, it'd be a much better world that we live in. And that sounds so hokey, but it's true. It's really true. It's really true.
I think that's a great way to end this. Thank you so much for your wisdom. I mean, that was wonderful. Barry, if you want to come on, give some announcements.
I would love to thank you, ladies, all 5 of you. I was hoping for genuineness. I think we got it. I think God is so great. He's given us each a heart and a brain. It came across right here. And thank you so much. And I think we all learned a lot sitting here. This came together, so you know, I had a visit. I'm new in this position. I've been here 1 year, actually, and Lori was brand new at her job. And getting an appointment with her was about 3 to 4 months. And so I got an appointment, and I said, yes, I'm showing up. And right then, my boss, Dave Barrett, calls me. My board of directors calls me on the phone. Well, boss, I'm working right now. What are you doing? But I talked to Lori, and at the way out, I said, I want to do a conference like this to build a community and our brand, and I'll tell you why in a second. And Lori, at the way out, she said, I'm in, but you got to get Kelly, who I had yet to be, and was on her radar at about 5 months to get to. No, I'm only kidding. But I made the appointments at the same time because I think they started at the same time. Johnny Kelly I've known of, never had a chance to meet her, and I was fortunate enough to get connected. And Angela is a rock star. Everybody knows Angela, and she's incredible. Virginia Credit Union is lucky to have her. And then I will tell you, Delaney at Channel 8, I was a celebrity. A lot of you don't know that, but I was on Channel 8. Where's Larry? Is he still here? Larry never filled out my contract yet, Larry. Larry's a new general manager president, but I worked before Delaney at Channel 8. You don't know this because you're too young. But I had nice shoes, and you got to check out her shoes. That's what we do on the news. I bought a segment. They didn't pay me. I had to pay for 4 minutes on Channel 8 for 12 years, and it was great every Sunday morning to talk to the community. But, and Angela mentioned Executive Women's International. So I've got so many bosses, you would not want to be me. I'm just telling you, that probably is. So, Sandy, raise your hand. She's like, I'm his boss. She's the recruiting champion for EWI.
Great organization.
And what is the name?
Executive Women International.
And everybody out there should be saying, what is Barry in that, right? Because you don't see me sitting up here.
Well, you're Mr.
So I am Mr. EWI for the temporary time until I hire someone. But I work with Sandy trying to recruit. It's one of the greatest organizations ever that I've ever been part of. When I left Richmond in 18, it broke me up that I had to leave that. And again, I didn't go to every meeting. I had a lady that was going. And I just missed it so much. And here I am back in town. And I will tell you why we're doing this. So we're Better Business Bureau. We've been around since when, Dave? 1912. 1912. My board members know this stuff. My chairman of the board is here somewhere. I saw Vincent here. He owns Quality Service. So we run with a board of directors. So they're my boss. But first of all, the BBB brand, 1912, nonprofit. We're not a government agency. We don't carry guns like the IRS. We can't do anything. We have no jurisdiction of anything. We just communicate. We just want our community to communicate. Been in the car business for 40 years. I understand conflict. I understand how to get resolution. Been through all the training, dealt with all sorts of people, okay? Good things happen, bad things happen. But the Better Business Bureau, and I want to point this out, Richmond Times Dispatch, Virginia Credit Union, we skip over government. It's not because your mom would not fit in, but she could someday. But in the government role, we're not allowed to be accredited. Richmond Raceway and Channel 8, all accredited businesses. And I didn't just pick that up to make that happen on purpose, but that's who leads our communities. That's who you want to lead with. You want to lead with the BBB. So my biggest set of bosses are all of you, because you're consumers. So I report to you. I work in 42 counties, and all I'm going to ask you very simply, and it's my mission in life until I'm done, bbb.org, do not shop, do business with anybody that you don't check out. I handle scams. I got a call yesterday. We all have good stories, so I'm going to give you a story.
Go for it.
So a lady calls me. Her boss is accredited. He got accredited when I moved back. He's a friend of mine. She goes, Barry, can you help me out? Okay, what can I do? Yeah, when it starts like that, especially in the car business, it means a payment or an engine's blown. So I'm like, okay, I've got to go cautiously. She goes, I went with a mover, a broker, offline. So, Somebody said something. $7,000. Paid them all set, ready to go. Came out, brought my furniture down the floor. Well, before they left my house in Richmond, they got it up to $14,000. I couldn't do anything because the stuff was halfway on their truck. What do I do? My husband's very sick. He's in Florida. What do I do? So she paid, right? Got to Florida. Guess what? All her stuff's not there. They jacked her up for more money. She's in for $20,000, $7,000 move. I said, did you ever check BBB.org? No, I knew you were going to say that, but that's why I'm calling you. Nothing I can do for you right now. You're out 20 grand. And they held her stuff hostage until she paid. They left it in the truck. So if you don't think it happens, we have the best team. So I work for you, not me personally, our 12-inch staff that are amazing on conflict resolution. But everything you do, shop BBB.org. Change this community. We can change it in 90 days. That's why I moved here. My wife still lives in Pittsburgh. This is a mission that I believe in 100%. But I need all of you. You're all my bosses. So I always go through this real quick. My board of directors are my bosses. My team is my bosses. You all, consumers, all these accredited businesses, they're my bosses, all their owners. And I got one more, a wife for 33 years. So what do I do then? So I got a lot of bosses, okay? So I'm going to ask you ladies to leave. Sorry, not to throw you out.
Can we
but-
give Larry love for
but-
inviting us to his house? Yeah.